Hey Morley, I told you, didn't I? Don't call me while I'm on a business trip, no matter what. Can't you even follow that simple rule? Guess being a stay-at-home wife really means being useless. Don't you dare trouble me, you lousy wife. Tim spat out with utter disdain. Saying a stay-at-home wife is useless, he casually threw around filthy words like lousy wife. And as always, his attitude was domineering, but I responded with a half-laugh. Oh come on, what are you talking about being on a business trip? You mean cheating, right? What? After his word, there was a moment of dead silence from Tim. He was wrong to think I knew nothing. We'll see who's really the useless one here, I thought, determined to settle this once and for all. Just when I thought I heard him sigh deeply, Tim spoke in a mocking tone. Look, I think lying is wrong. Anyway, unlike you, I'm busy, so don't you dare call me again. He emphasized each word with a lower voice before unilaterally hanging up the phone. I was left staring at the call-ended screen. He hardly let me speak. I had something important to tell him, but I never got the chance. My kindness, thinking it was better to tell him sooner, was completely shattered. And yet, he had the nerve to repeatedly tell me not to call him. Well, that's fine then. I have my own things to deal with. Finally putting my phone down, I stood up. For the next 2 weeks, I strictly adhered to Tim's demand not to call him. Then, it was he who started calling me incessantly. Not just once or twice, but non-stop since morning. I was busy, so I ignored the calls until the evening. The moment I picked up, Tim was furious. Hey! Don't mess with me! What are you thinking? What do you mean? I have no idea what you're about all of a sudden. Shut up! Where the hell did you go? When I came home, both Morley and all the house's stuff were gone. What the hell is going on? I'm at my parents' house right now. As I slowly responded, as expected, Tim's rage skyrocketed. What the hell do you think you're doing? Leaving without a word to me. Get back here and make dinner. Don't neglect your duties. It's not my job or anything anymore, you know? You should take care of yourself, Tim. Because I'm never coming back to live in your house again. Huh? What are you talking about? You think you're allowed to do that? I am your husband. You're supposed to listen to me. I couldn't help but burst into laughter, holding my stomach while still on the phone. Tim, completely oblivious to the situation and still throwing arrogant words around, was just too ridiculous. Confused by my sudden laughter, Tim's rapid-fire talk paused for a moment. What's with you all of a sudden? You're acting strange, you know? Too lazy that you started getting dementia or what? Of course not. The one saying all sorts of weird stuff is you, Tim. Because, you know, we're already divorced. What? Divorced? What do you mean? I could almost see the dumbfounded look on Tim's face. This was the moment I had been waiting for. All the enduring was worth it. I instinctively placed a hand on my chest. Right now, I feel incredibly refreshed. Because, Tim, you always treated me like a housekeeper. Just earlier, you called yourself the husband as if that means something. A marriage is supposed to be equal, you know? What are you talking about? You should be grateful to me for earning the money. There, that tone. It's so domineering. And whenever you didn't like something, you'd hand me a filled-out divorce form to make me listen. I reached my limit. So, I signed my part and filed for divorce. You can't just do that without my permission. I've been supporting you, you know. How do you think you're gonna survive on your own being useless and all? Tim was screaming so much that his voice was hoarse. I didn't even need to hold the receiver to my ear, his voice was loud enough to hear from the phone on the desk. I knew why he was so angry. It wasn't about the divorce itself. His pride was hurt because I, whom he had always looked down upon, had suddenly stood up to him. I was always belittled just to satisfy my husband's need for approval. There are people in the world who can only feel happiness by comparing themselves to others. I existed in this house only to be hurt. I'm sick of living like this. My counterattack is far from over. I decided to mention something I couldn't say during the previous phone call. You should worry about yourself rather than me. You say a stay-at-home wife can't live on her own because she doesn't earn, right? Well, you can't live without a job either, can you? You got a termination notice while you were cheating. What? Termination notice? What are you talking about? There's no way that's true. Don't take out your insecurity about the future on me with some random lie. Why would I need to lie and lash out at you? If you doubt it, just check the mailbox. It's not a big deal. There might be other mail piling up, some of it possibly for you. Damn, this is annoying. Why are you giving me orders all of a sudden today? Remember this for later. Despite his grumbling, I could hear sounds of walking and rummaging through things over the phone. He seemed to be following what I said. Perhaps starting to listen a bit after I filed for divorce. Such a foolish man. Only able to act when it's too late. Soon, a voice that sounded both surprised and groaning came from the other end of the phone. Apparently, he had found the actual document. He immediately started yelling again. Hey, what's this about? There really is a termination notice here. And it's dated 2 weeks ago. Why didn't you contact me sooner? I did, remember? I called you 2 weeks ago. But you wouldn't even let me speak and just hung up after telling me never to call again. So, I just followed your words strictly. A stay-at-home wife must listen to her husband, right? My husband groaned in frustration. He probably never expected me to use his own words against him. I felt almost like singing a little tune. But there's still so much I want to say. I'll save my joy for the end. After a bit of silence, my husband suddenly snorted with laughter. I can't believe I got a little shaken by the words termination notice. Thinking calmly, there's no way this could be real. There's no reason for me to be fired. You must have made up this fake, huh? You've gotten a bit smarter. Imagining his smug face made me grimace. My pleasant mood was ruined. Why does he twist the truth to suit himself? He's the one who should be calming down. I tried to maintain my calm as I explained, pressing the bridge of my nose. Listen, I checked directly with your company to see if you were really on a business trip. I had noticed your affair. At first, I wasn't sure what to do, but knowing you, you wouldn't admit it if I just confronted you. So, I needed evidence, right? That's why I went straight to your company. Went straight? What did you do? I didn't storm in or anything. I just asked the office staff. I wanted to get in touch with my husband. Do you know where he went on his business trip? Then, they told me you've been off for a month. They seemed very awkward. You should apologize to her next time. You didn't need to do that. I could hear the sound of teeth grinding over the phone. This is just the beginning of his frustration. He's about to be knocked down into despair. I was smiling beautifully, even though no one could see. Then, when I expressed concern that my husband was missing, they made a suggestion. The company phone has GPS, you know. They said if we follow that, we might find out where he is, so they talked to someone higher up for me. Then, the higher-ups looked into it and found you were in a place unrelated to work. They were furious. No, that's a lie. That can't be real. Denying reality won't help. They contacted me later to say they would take appropriate action. And that resulted in the termination notice you're holding now. Silence fell. The longest since the call started. I spent the time sipping tea and munching on the remaining snacks on my desk, waiting for his response. Just when I started thinking it might be okay to hang up, a faint voice finally came through. I get your point. But holding this termination notice, I can't quite grasp it. I want to meet and talk to you in person. All right, then I'll come to your place today. With that promise, I finally ended the call. The sky was already covered in a thin dusk. The next day, early in the morning, I rang the doorbell of the house where I lived with my husband. Unfortunately, it was raining outside, but I could hear cheerful footsteps coming from inside. I couldn't help but twitch my cheeks in anticipation. My husband probably expected that meeting me in person today, he could sway me to his side. Over the phone, the voice is the only means of communication. But face to face, false expressions of love or apologies could easily be manipulated. That's what he must have been thinking. I was excited to see the look on his face the moment I opened the door.
Welcome, Morley. I prepared your favorite cake today and… What? Boss, and even Mom and Dad.
I burst out laughing without any regard for who might see me. Yes, I had come with my husband's company's top and my in-laws. Nobody had promised him I would come alone today. You could visibly see my husband's face turn pale.
I thought you'd want to know the detailed circumstances of the firing, so I brought him along. Boss, who looked into the GPS after hearing my story when I stormed into the company. Bringing the boss over casually like that isn't right. He's my boss, you know? The most important person? I was the one who suggested coming along. You know, I have a professional connection with Tim's parents. Through that, I've met Morley. If she's in trouble, it's only right to help, isn't it? We've heard the whole story from Morley. It's astounding how much trouble you've caused for everyone. It's beyond anger, it's embarrassing as a parent. We were worried about you and Morley meeting one-on-one. So, we came as soon as we could. You disgrace.
My husband started sweating profusely. No. Well. He couldn't start a proper conversation, just stuttering. Not wanting to leave the elderly standing outside, we decided to enter the house. From the hallway to the living room, everything was spotlessly clean. Probably cleaned the night before to make a good impression on me. However, peering into other rooms, I found cleaning supplies and laundry haphazardly shoved aside. Typical of a man who rarely does housework, always lacking in thoroughness. Since my husband took the first seat and didn't move, I prepared the coffee. The positions of items inside the cupboard hadn't changed at all. He probably hadn't touched anything, not knowing where anything was. Even after I took my seat, my husband struggled to start talking. Everyone else, except for him, was crossing their arms, staring him down with pressure.
I don't know what Morley told you, but there's been a misunderstanding. I really was on a business trip, I wasn't cheating. I was the one who tracked your company phone's GPS. Are you saying I'm lying? No, it's not that, but devices have their flaws, it might have malfunctioned.
I see, indeed, any device could malfunction.
But when I contacted the company you claimed to visit, the corporation, they said they had no appointment with you? You checked that far.
My husband slumped. His carefully chosen stylish clothes now wrinkled from his slouched back.
You lied to your wife and cheated, and your treatment of her has been terrible. Always commanding, yelling, and looking down on her, right? A marriage is supposed to be equal, and even if there were a hierarchy, excessive behavior could be considered harassment, you know that, right? You're an adult in society.
The boss's voice was calm but carried an intimidating air. It put not just my husband but also me, listening in, on edge.
I was never harassed. We're a married couple, some arguments are natural. It was just an extension of that, maybe I went too far.
My husband's voice was hoarse, his lips dry. His pupils dilated and unfocused, his eyes darting around. He was on the brink. Even without further action, he was deteriorating on his own. But sometimes, the cornered show terrifying resistance. A basic instinct for survival. Suddenly, he looked up, his eyes bloodshot, and began shouting.
I love Morley. I've made mistakes, but no one is perfect. My guilt only deepened my feelings for her. I swear, I've never intentionally hurt her.
Everyone, even the boss and my in-laws, was momentarily taken aback by his fervor. Right now, he might look the same, but he was a different person, almost mad. It was time for me to make a move. I quickly reached into my pocket.
Tim, I'm glad you feel that way about me. To respond to your feelings, I'll also be honest about mine.
No sooner had I declared this than my husband's voice filled the room at a high volume.
What the hell are you doing on your own? Get back here and make dinner without telling me. Don't neglect your duties.
Huh? What are you talking about? You think that's acceptable? I am your husband. It's only logical if you listen to me. My husband's complexion went from pale to ashen. Yes, I had recorded all our previous phone conversations. Listening to the barrage of verbal abuse and selfish remarks, my husband finally slumped over the desk. Weakly groaning, yeah, as tears overflowed from his vacant eyes. My in-laws, in contrast, turned visibly redder in the face. Despite my explanations of our past, they might have wanted to deny it. After all, my husband and they are blood-related. But now, their last bastion of denial was shattered to pieces. In their eyes, not only anger but also despair was reflected. This idiot son of ours! To think we had such a connection! Marriage isn't the goal, you know. It's rather the beginning. Effort must continue throughout life, or trust can be broken in an instant. Just as you are our precious son, Morley is someone's precious daughter. You've done something irrevocable. Cheating, mistreating your wife, getting fired. It's no wonder you're being divorced. Be prepared. What you've done will follow you for life. But, Dad, Mom, isn't that a bit too harsh? It's a mistake your son made, can't you overlook it a bit? My husband, still face down, retorted in resignation. Seeing this, my father-in-law slammed his fist on the table. Idiot! It's precisely because we're family that we must be strict when necessary. If you still don't understand after all this, we have no choice but to cut ties with you. What? Dad? What are you saying? I was just reminiscing about your childhood. How you'd run to us with your small body, offering flowers you picked from the roadside. Every child has a lovable childhood. But somewhere along the line, where did you go wrong? A tear streaked down my mother-in-law's cheek as she bowed her head, holding a handkerchief. My husband was stunned, shocked by my father-in-law's shouting and moved by my mother-in-law's tears. His lips quivered, then his eyes filled with tears again. I'm sorry for being such a disappointment. You're apologizing to the wrong person. My husband's gaze turned towards me. His eyes still seemed unreliable, wavering. But after seeing my mother-in-law's tears again, he seemed to make up his mind. He got off the chair and apologized to me. Morley, I'm so sorry. For cheating, for lying, for hurting you all this time. I'm sorry. Witnessing my husband's apology, I finally relaxed my shoulders. He was already in debt from lavishing gifts on his mistress. With no job and his irresponsible behavior becoming a rumor in the industry, finding another job was difficult. Additionally, it turned out his mistress was also married. He ended up selling the house and juggle multiple part-time jobs, working into the night. With hardly any days off, he crammed his schedule full. Living in a cramped, run-down apartment, he survives on bread, living solely to pay off his debts. The mistress ended up divorced and kicked out of her house too. Luckily, her parents' house was nearby, but after learning of the affair, they disowned her, leading to another expulsion. Losing his job and with all his money gone, he led a life of extreme poverty, utterly broken. Meanwhile, thanks to an introduction from the boss, I managed to secure a full-time job. Though learning new things every day is challenging, it's fulfilling. I plan to move out of my parents' house soon and start living on my own. I can't thank the boss enough for his help in bringing justice to my husband. And I owe it to my in-laws for the connection. Because we maintained a good relationship, I was able to connect with the boss. The circle of people grows as you meet more people and strengthen trust, expanding into a larger network. Gratitude towards others is vital in supporting this growth. I'll continue to cherish the words "thank you," valuing both the people currently around me and those I'll meet in the future.